come see about me. I'll be alone, dancing, you know it, baby. Tell me your troubles and doubts, giving me everything, and sound it out. So won't you forget about me? Don't you forget about me.
Well done, guys. Nice song.
You like this piece of music?
Absolutely. Do you remember when it came out?
Well, I remember vaguely. I can't give you a precise date.
Who knows?
The date of
The year.
Simple Minds,
Simple Minds.
Don't You
Anybody
Forget
has
About
it?
Me.
79, guys. Almost 40 years. 79.
You're older
That's
than I
great.
thought.
Okay.
You're involved in lots of different areas and, you know, virtual platforms and all the rest of it. How does this all come together? What are the important areas for you in the work? What are the things which people don't really focus on properly?
Well, things are changing in the last couple of years, or maybe 4 or 5 years. And you know, from the presentation I saw yesterday from McAfee, from Mo Morris, where you get an entire rack space was full of hardware platform and all that spaghetti-ness between all the cables behind. It's getting too much complicated, and people wants to move towards simplicity, towards something which is easier to manage and to afford when they have to run networking functionality and security functionality. So we have followed the market. We know that specifically in Europe and Southern Europe mainly, people are migrating to virtualization. Instead of putting hardware appliances everywhere, they're moving towards a virtual solution.
But is there still amongst ordinary customers, not people who are that experienced, but obviously companies that need IT for, I mean, we all need it, even as individuals. Is there still in managing director offices the will to solve these problems? Because if they're not going to point their departments and invest in their departments to solve the problems, it's not going to happen.
There is a serious will. I mean, people want to have more affordable technology.
Yep.
They are cautious about electricity consumption, cooling systems, space of all those racks. So it's a change in the market.
So there's still a personal approach needed. We still have to persuade the world that it's an important issue. Please go and explain anyway the areas that you're covering.
So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rodolf Schmit. I'm working for this company, Array Networks, which is I'm not going to bother you, you know, if you read something about Array Networks and you will say, oh, that's another load balancer vendor. Not at all. We do have load balancer, but I'm going to be telling you something completely different in the approach we are doing, and that's the reason why we are calling ourselves, since almost 3 years, the networking function company. Few words about us, few words about Array. Milpitas headquartered company, Silicon Valley. We have been incorporated almost since 20 years now, employing about 250 people worldwide. And the focus is really virtualized application delivery and security. We have a set of product ranges for that, which I will be highlighted here in this slide. So here on your left-hand side, you will find the traditional hardware appliances. Right? We do have hardware appliances for load balancer, called more and more, in our words, ADC, application delivery controllers. We have AG, a series of products for the SSL VPN, allowing remote users to get access to the corporate infrastructure. So all those appliances gives you the maximum performance with a high degree of scalability. On the right-hand side of the product, you have exactly the same set of product, but as a software, just as a software solution. And in the middle here of my slide, you have the platform. You have the network function platform, which gives you, for instance, for an enterprise customer, the hyper-converged network and security solution. Or in a case, for instance, for infrastructure as a service, which is starting to become quite common, people offering that sort of service, infrastructure as a service, where you can have security and networking function on-premise or eventually hosted. If you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me. I know I only have another 26 minutes, but I want to be at this session to have it more and more interactive. So if you have questions, let's go on. So virtualized app and delivery and security. You're moving from secure application delivery, which are provided with piece of hardware, gives you the advantage of having high availability, the performance, traffic management, secure access, whatever. And then what we see in the market, there is an evolution towards virtualization. Okay? And then where we are today, with the platform strategy, with the platform offering, we are creating the foundation for the future. And I will explain exactly how it's going to be working. The fact that we have changed and introduced this philosophy about 2.5 years ago is also backed up by those guys, by certain market analysis. And this is the slide from Garden Group. As you can see from the slide, you know, the traditional ADC appliances, they got in volume sales. They reached their peak in 2014, 2015. And this is, since then, a clear decline on the number of appliances that people are selling, that vendors, my competitors, etc., are selling. A few years ago, this green portion of the bars, those were the traditional SLB, server load balancing. Doesn't exist any longer. Nobody buys just a simple server load balancing. It's all integrated in more sophisticated ADC product. However, on the rise, you really see the virtual ADCs for the MSP, so the ADCs on lease, or really the virtual ADC for enterprise and SMB customer. Now we have to consider the pros and the cons of this software solution, of those virtual appliances. On the pro, clearly, you have the flexibility and the agility. You can change, you purchase what you need. The vast majority of the vendor do offer you today either a monthly subscription, a quarterly subscription, or an annual subscription, or eventually even a perpetual license. So you just buy what you need for a certain period of time, and you pay as you grow. It avoids you to be vendor locked in. You have a freedom to buy, to purchase the best of breed solutions. You have the choice of hardware in terms of several hypervisor systems that you can use. And of course, dramatically increase, or dramatically pro, I would say, is a space, cooling, and the electricity consumption. Instead of having, you know, lots of bench of different hardware, you can dramatically reduce that by a factor, you will see later on, by a factor 32 if you want. On the however, on the cons. Clearly, a software solution will never be so well performant as a hardware solution. So you might have performance issues, and you certainly also have scalability issues. Okay? Skill deficit, you need to train your people. If you're from an end user perspective, you need to train your people to become expert in several hypervisor. Complex and troubleshooting might be a little bit more complex either. And also a very important point are the hidden costs of those hardware. And maintaining a hypervisor is not totally cheap, you know. You pay an annual fee for that, and it's not so cheap. What we have done with the Array platform approach, we have combined the pros of the two worlds. You got a piece of hardware giving you the simplicity, giving you the performance, and on the other hand, you have all sorts of virtual installation, virtual instance, virtual software solution that you can slide into the box. So it's really virtualized, it's multi-tenant, and it's absolutely vendor neutral.
Isolation, you mentioned isolation. How serious is the isolation of a security perspective between two VMs, for instance, virtual machines?
Yeah.
How serious is that? Today's technology is coping with that, or is that threat?
The,
It's a persistent threat in this perspective.
the fact is that isolating troubles, when you have different solutions running on different servers, Dell server, HP server, whatever, and you don't know from which angle this threat comes, the fact is that it can be replicated on the different servers that you have, having different sort of technology. And it's difficult to isolate from who this threat comes from. Is it my next generation firewall? Is it my IPS system? Is it another product security that you have put in line? So isolating that issue is a problem. So the network platform, on the upper part of my slide, the white one, right? This is giving you the shared environment. So I'm talking here about the architecture of the array platform. On the upper side, the white side, you have your variable size of virtual machine. And you can mismatch them. And the system, the biggest system we have today can support up to 32 entry-level instances, or 16, 16 small, 8 medium, or 4 large instances. And as I said, you can totally mix them up until you reach the maximum capacity of the box. You have pay as you go, I mentioned that earlier. If you want one system for eventually 3 months, purchase from the vendor, slide it in, you use it for 3 months. Multiple function, network function. Today, you can deploy ADC, application delivery. You can deploy WAF. You can deploy Ssl VPN, next generation firewalls, etc., etc. I will have a slide later on to show you exactly which third vendor parties we have certified. And the management is pretty automatic. It's an automation, integrates with the existing NMS, and also on the cloud side, it's managed via RESTful API. On the bottom part of my slide, this is the piece of hardware. This is the hypervisor management to manage all the different virtual instances. And we have done an approach with dedicated resources in order to give guaranteed performance to every single VM virtual solution that you are going to be sliding into the box. What do I mean with dedicated resources? Well, you will be able to give and to allocate a certain numbers of virtual CPU, to allocate a RAM memory, the size of a RAM memory. You will be able to allocate the SSL virtual function in order to do the SSL offloading. And you're also going to be able, oops, I pushed, that's the slide I wanted to show. Oh yes, that's the wrong. Can I go back here somewhere? I go forwards, it doesn't matter. I thought I could go backwards. So, with this in place, just think about it. You're an enterprise company. Your IT department will become a sort of agent, a sort of provider of different services and technology. So the IT department will have to be more and more agile in order to be able to offer that sort of solution to the different groups, to the different departments, in order to sustain and to support the internal projects. So the IT department must become much more agile to be able to offer this on-demand service. If you're an MSP, a managed service provider, well, those people, those organizations need to provide service, networking, or security functionality in order to sustain their business inside their own customer. So, and of course, they offer this as an infrastructure as a service in order to sustain multiple customers. MSP cannot live with just one customer, right? So they have multiple customers. And of course, when they do that, this minimizing the cost and the deployment time, and at the same time, they have to keep an eye on the CapEx and the OpEx. That's another example with the agility, with the guaranteed performance. So IT wants, for instance, to have a multi-tenant ADC or virtualized solution, but they want to have a high degree of performance in terms of SSL, in terms of SSL transaction per second. A compute-intensive VADC, a use case might eventually require a server load balancing, a link load balancing, a global server load balancing, a WAF, and an SSL VPN. Just one single virtual ADC cannot handle all these different loads in the traffic. If you do it with this, you will be distributing all those VADC functionality into just one piece of hardware and get the guaranteed performance. The way it works, this is an example, for instance. I have a network function platform, and I need to configure a VADC, a virtual application ADC. So for this, it's really web GUI driven for the configuration. I will allocate 4, or in this case 8 virtual CPU for this virtual APV. I will dedicate or allocate 16 gigabit of RAM, and I will allocate 4 IOs and, for instance, 4 SSL virtual SSL VPN. Another example, I have, for instance, a VDNS to configure. I have a VAPV or an SSL VPN, a VWAF, and I will allocate for every single instance, for every single virtual solution, the appropriate resources I need for those virtual solutions to work fine. So you have the needed functionality, you have the software agility, and of course, you got the hardware performance because everything resides on a pretty sophisticated platform. So, virtual appliance, why array, software-centric agility, that's what I mentioned. You got all that agility to put and slide the solution that you need, that you want to install in the system. Simplify deployment. It's very easy. You know, we have eliminated the complexity to do the port mapping between the virtual and the physical. You don't have to do that. The CPU pinging has also disappeared. Very easy to install and to get it up work. Guaranteed performance, and about the array third-party VAs which are available. Just the last slide here again, summarizing the aspect of the platform with the network function and the third-party arrangement. Let's talk a little bit about the third-party solution that you can deploy. On your left-hand side, you have the array solution. You have the array VAPV. You have the array SSL VPN. You can also eventually slide in the WAN optimization functionality we have to accelerate the traffic over the WAN. So you compress and you accelerate the traffic. In the middle, well, you got here, it doesn't show probably nicely on the slide, but the WAN up solution is a Silver Peak solution that we have certified. Next generation firewalls, we have certified Fortinet, certified Sophos, tested Sophos, sorry, but certified Hillstone. Okay? And if you are absolutely, you know, I wouldn't say crazy about F5, but you want absolutely for your load balancing ADC part to use an F5 solution, it's working. We've tested it. The only condition is that it needs all to run, all this VM needs to run, at least for the moment still, under KVM. KVM is the hypervisor which gives us the best performance. And then what's also going to be open for open software like Linux solutions. With this in mind, with this concept in mind, think about it. You can be starting to create service chaining. Okay? Instead of putting a pair of load balancer and dedicated WAF, you could do it. You got your traffic, that's the policy service chain number 1, the upper one. You got all the traffic, incoming traffic, coming in, hitting your next generation firewall, in this case a Palo Alto. Then it hits a VXAG for the remote users who wants to dial in or connect in over a secure VPN channel, then connect to the corporate infrastructure. And then before it hits the load balancer, who will then be load balancing the traffic to the appropriate server. The second example, as you probably know, there are some solutions like the next generation firewalls or like the WAF. They are pretty blind when the traffic that comes in is encrypted. So that means that those solutions will lose a lot of horsepower to try to understand this encrypted packet. That's a new concept which is now called Ssl Interception, SSLI, Ssl Interception. And this example is shown here in case number 2, where you have your incoming traffic pass through the firewall, hits an SSL solution, an SSL instance. This one will disencrypt the traffic, pass the data over, in this case, an Imperva WAF, and eventually, at the same time, over an Arbor solution or whatever, something which managing, supervising the traffic and the packets. And then we put another load balancer at the end, who will then re-encrypt the data and pass the data over encrypted to the server. Keep this in mind, it's coming more and more. We have done recently a very large deployment of SSLI in India. But you can create service training. So, how can we help you? Guys, with the platform, it solves the application delivery and security issue you have, and really it supports any sort of network and security solution we have. Condition is for the moment still under KVM. We have tested already more than 12 different solutions from other vendors, and it's really working fine. I'll show you at the end of the presentation some case studies. You will be surprised. On the terms of platform, we have 2 series. The 600 series, this was launched about 2.5 years, almost 3 years now. And we have changed the hardware, we have improved the hardware dramatically for better performance in terms of throughput, in terms of SSL TPS, in terms of a new standard of encrypting the product. You're probably familiar with 2048-bit encryption, RSA AES. But this is even not enough any longer, so we are migrating with ECC encryption. I don't know if you're familiar with ECC, elliptic curve encryption, which has become a new standard and much more secure than the RSA. So all the 800 series, they are compatible with this ECC SSL encryption. About the box, just have a look to those numbers. The entry level is the 5800. It supports up to 1 large, 2 medium, 4 small, and 8 entry-level instances. Right? An entry-level system in our jargon, APV, load balancer from array, would be a 5 gigabit of throughput device and supporting probably 5,000 SSL TPS. The 7800 in the middle support twice more as the entry level, and the bigger one, the 9800, again twice more or 4 times more as the entry level system. So we move here from a 40 gig platform up to a 160 gigabit platform in terms of layer 4 throughput. And in terms of maximum SSL TPS, transaction per second, from 40K up to 160,000 transactions per second it can support. Some use cases. No questions? Is everything clear so far? So I just put 3 slides with the case studies we've done, or the case references one. Everbright Bank, a bank in China. They have purchased 4 of those devices. China introduced about 2 years ago Black Friday. You're familiar, right, with Black Friday, selling on a Friday in November? It came from the US. Sometimes there are good things from the US coming over. so long they keep the president over and far away from us, that's fine. Nobody wants to deal with Donald over here. So Everbright Bank, they were afraid that the Chinese folks are totally crazy about shopping. And if you have shopping sales, whatever, it's craziness. So the bank was afraid that all of a sudden, with all this shopping nightmare, the online payment system of the bank would collapse. Okay? So they have to approach us with our platform solution, because from a cost perspective, the alternative was to spill up a certain numbers of ADCs, right? But then, outside Christmas shopping, outside Black Friday, and some other activity, those hardware investment would just be residing there idle, because the load fluctuation doesn't necessarily need to have so many pieces of hardware. They have decided to put all the load balancing system on the AVX platform, so it's only VAPV that they have that they're using from us. And one of the key criteria was, because it's payment, because it's HTTPS traffic, it's the performance of the SSL. So the number of SSL transactions a box, a solution like this can support. This was a key feature. And all these standalone hardware pieces couldn't cope with the numbers of SSL transactions that the bank was requiring. And bottom line was that this solution offered on 4 devices was almost costing half the price of dedicated appliances which they would consider with a load balancer. Another example is Jute. Jute is a university. They have deployed a high availability system, so one pair of AVX 7600, and they wanted to apply different security policy for different user group. So they have deployed on the AVX solution from Hillstone. This was the next generation firewall solution. They have deployed from outside VAPV, our load balancer, SSL VPN with the VXAG, and a VWAF. Okay? The internal user, they got access through the SSL VPN, and the external user, they got filtered through the virtual WAF, the virtual web application firewall. So if they would have done this with dedicated virtual solution from Hillstone, from us, from another competitor, right? They would just suffer, by having all these things working up together. And now here, with this solution, based on the platform, every single instance performs equally well as if they had done it on several machines, on several virtual machines. Again, less than half the cost of the standalone hardware. And then the last slide I have, the last reference I have, is a company that everybody knows, right? You all know Logitech, Taiwanese-based company. Look what they have done. They have chosen our platform. They have invested in one AVX machine, and the purpose was to replace an older voice over IP gateway. That was the criteria they wanted. They wanted to have a voice over IP gateway replaced. What they have deployed on the AVX machine are V routers from Cisco, V switches from Cisco, and a new voice over IP system from Cisco. No load balancer, no SSL VPN, no other technology from Array. They just, put the V switches and equipment from Cisco on the machine. They had a significant CapEx saving by moving towards that approach. I still have a good 2 minutes, so let me know if you have any questions. What do you think about this approach? Are you in line with what Gartner says? You still do a lot of investment in traditional hardware appliances? Or are you also considering to move on and go virtual? Conservative market, this is Germany and France. It's damn hard to convince them. They just want to piece of hardware and lots of cable behind the hardware to connect to something else. So the mentality is changing. We see tremendous, attention for this sort of approach. So then, I wish you all the best. Thank you very much for having listened to me. Enjoy the rest of the day, and I will be around for the next 5-10 minutes. So if you want to have some other questions, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.